Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time of the day you're watching this little video intro here and interview I have today. Sid from Sid Sticks. I'm back. It's been a while. I got myself a pretty interesting guest, I think. I jokingly always say this when I interview someone from the other side, down the road from where I grew up, the evil neighbor, as I call Warroad. This young man is young to me, but he's not so much young. From Warroad, worked his way up, played youth hockey there in Warroad, then played on a high school team where they won a state title. From there, moved on to playing juniors up in Canada. Kind of jokingly say he had a suitcase going on for a few years, but made a name for himself up there too. They won a title in the league he played in. From there, went on to go to school, did a little Hamline, a little legal, learned a little bit about the law field, played at Hamline, won an MIAC championship there, I believe, as well as graduated with a very high GPA, something that I'm very envious of. 3.596, something, whatever, almost 4.0. That's a lot of accomplishment there. And what do they call it? Magna cum laude or something like that. But the guy's a smarty. And he went on from there, coach to coach, beside after playing with the coach there as an assistant coach there, then on to juniors. And now he became I believe it was the sixth head coach in Cobber history since 1967. And I go back to the Al Rice days. I remember good old Al Rice coaching there for the Cobbers back in the day. But we'll have some good stories. I'm very excited to bring in and talk with head coach of the MIAC Concordia Cobbers hockey team, Kirk Olimb. Kirk, how you doing, my friend?
Good. Here at our house in New London outside. The birds are chirping. Hopefully it's not too much of a distraction, but doing well. And yeah, you nailed most of that intro. It was almost all accurate. A couple things here.
Well, I try to do my research, even though I didn't research too much back in college and high school back in the day. Maybe I should have took a little bit out of your book, your schooling days.
No, you did a good job. No, and thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Oh, I appreciate it. So it's been a little while. Good to have you back on here. Good to have you on here, I should say, and get back at it here. So, how I start this when I talk to people, the 218ers back home, whether it be from Roseville, Warroad, who knows where else, Bemidji, wherever it may be, where it all started as a youth. So can you talk a little bit? Let's just go back to when you were a youth playing in, Hockey Town, as it's called. I always say that, I kind of bite my tongue, but no, Hockey Town, USA there in Warroad. Some of the experiences you had as a youth there playing on some teams, and who coached you through the youth, because that's where everything started and kind of went from there.
Yeah, Hockey Town, USA for sure. And it started with my dad. He played Warroad Lakers, and at one point he actually wasn't going to have me play hockey, but Mike Marvin, most people know Mike. Aaron Marvin, dude was the same birth year as me. He was 1 year behind me in school. Gigi was a year ahead of me in school. And so Mike did a good job of rounding up all the kids. And so what would happen is Zach Larson and I, also state champion with Warroad High School, a good friend of mine, grew up kitty corner from each other. Mike would come in his maroon pickup truck, and he'd have Aaron and Gigi already in there with their full gear on, skate guards. I'd have my full gear on. Zach would have his full gear on. We'd all jump in, bench seat, Chevy maroon truck, and Mike jump in, and Mike would give us a ride up to the rink, and we'd skate all day. He'd have donuts and stuff. And so, yeah, Mike Marvin, huge influence on me as a little one. And then, Henry Boucher coached in Squirts, my first year of Squirt. Then my dad was coaching next year of Squirt. He coached me a lot. Then had Mike Marvin and son Shagaby in Pee-wees. And then Albert Hasbargen in Bantams, and then Henry Boucher, and then Big Osh, Coach Osh in Bantams too. So some great coaches over the years, and some great memories growing up, some really good teams in Warroad. Pretty much every team that I was on, we had a lot of success, and that's just kind of how you're built up there. And you love the game, and a ton of open hockey, whether it be with a tennis ball or with a puck, whether it be indoors, outdoors. It was all the time. And yeah, skating with Dude and Gigi. Always, Mike was always sure to have us up there. So, holidays, get a phone call, hey, we're gonna be at the rink, and I'd be up there skating with them. So attribute a lot of the limited success I had on the ice, but somewhat decent to Mike Marvin and growing up in Warroad.
Well, and I know Mike, he coached against when I played for Dickie Johnson back in the day. Yeah. Mike was a Pee-wee coach, so we had some battles against his squads, and old Izzy, of course, too, played on that squad. So
yeah, I think Dick Johnson was coaching the Pee-wee team when I was playing Pee-wees even.
Okay. Yeah.
Pretty
Well,
sure.
I had Son on recently, and Son, he said he was kind of a mentor to him, and that's kind of cool that the two communities, they come together from that standpoint. So, some really good hockey, people up there in
Yeah,
both communities.
there's a
But
lot of respect between the two for sure.
absolutely, absolutely. As much as we jokingly say, oh yeah, I joke about the evil neighbor and that, hey, once you're off the ice, you're friends, and you're in the hockey community is forever. You have some great memories as you talked about. One thing I was going to ask you to talk about, we talked about the youth and the games that you played in, and some of the good games. I want to talk about, you were played on a Bantam team, if I remember. I think I heard where that's when it was only A. There wasn't double A and single A and all the different things they have now, like they have now in Minnesota hockey. But you guys had a heck of a team. You didn't go on to win the Bantam tournament, but beat Moorhead. Moorhead was they were how do you call it? A wagon. Basically is the way I like to call it. And that had been a pretty good feeling to do that before things went to high school and went to single A and double A.
Yeah, that Bantam year, I was thinking of the guys we had on the team actually on the drive, because I was talking to Bobby Anacabby, one of the guys. He was on white line with me. So I was probably what do we have, 12, 13, maybe 14 guys. It's me, Bobby Anacabby, Kyle Cron, Derek Woodward, then Dude Marvin, Zach Cole, Kyle Moorbacher, then Josh Brody and Ben Bankston, Joe Herron, I think was the forward group, with Kyle Hardwick, Eric Olimb, Andy Brandt, Colton Lang, Mark Thiel, Tyler Potts in net. And if you notice, there's an important name missing from there is Osh. TJ Oshie hadn't moved to town yet, and yet we're arguably one of the best Bantam teams, I dare say, out of Roseau County ever. We were pretty good, and made the state tournament. It was just one class at that point. So the Moorhead game you're referring to, that was actually in the VFW district to go to VFW state. We beat them, in a big game to go to VFW state, and they had already been knocked out by Alexandria, I believe it was, in an upset in the district on the Maha side. But we won.
I got too mixed in.
Yeah, we won every tournament we played in. Won the Roseau tournament, the Warroad tournament, the Greenway tournament over in Coleraine was always a blast. We won the districts and regions, and Maha State, we won our first game. Then we played Roseville in the semifinal, and we outplayed him, outshot him. I remember Snooze, Kyle Hardwick, hit a pipe early on, had a bunch of grade A's. We were right there. We ended up losing in OT. We had a puck or rim around the boards on a shot that missed wide. We had a kid come down the wing and ripped one, hit our goalie in the shoulder, got a tough bounce, and rolled in. And had we won that game, we would have played Wyzetta, and they had Blake Wheeler as their big stud. Wow, yeah. So that would have been a good matchup. But again, that was just one class. So we beat Duluth East, I believe it was, in the third place game, and then in VFW state lost to was it RJ Anderson and Centennial in the semifinal, I think, and then kind of laid an egg in the third place game. But yeah, really good team. Josh Brodeen, want to say he was like top 20 in the country for his age group at the time. Kyle Hardwick, absolute stud. My cousin Eric, all those guys, Dude Marvin, NHL draft pick, St. Cloud State, like the list goes on of guys that played D3 or played D1 or, really good players. And yeah, my dad was one of the coaches. So maybe that's why I got to latch on as one of the last guys to make that team. But I worked really hard to be on there, and was proud of it, and limited ice time. But it was quite the crew. I remember 5:30 a.m. practices. We'd practice at 5:30 a.m. for 2 hours, 5:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. with 9 forwards and 4 or 5D, and we used to have to skate Herbies for every goal against we gave up, every even strength, every minus we had. Albert Hasbargen. So they'd come back from a tournament, and even if you win the tournament, like, it's not overall plus minus, it's if you got scored on. So say we won, each game 4-2, and those 2 goals were each even strength, it's at least 6. But like, there were times where it was maybe you're playing 4 or 5 games over a weekend and 12 Herbies to knock out, and but we did it, and I think we were better for it. But yeah, some fun memories. My cousin Eric was actually just visiting here this past weekend, and we were playing music that my dad used to play in the locker room, like Counting Crows and stuff. And it's funny, the stuff that sticks with you as you go and what you remember.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to have those memories. You talked about that Moore team. They had quite some players on there. They have some guys that went on and played pro hockey, if I remember too. So they did pretty well for themselves.
Oh yeah, they had Van de Velde, John Ammerman. Like, I think maybe all 4 of their defensemen ended up playing D1. Matt Becker played at Air Force. They were really, really good. Yeah, they were.
Not bad.
And then we met Brian Lee, of course. They were a good game.
And you talked about that one thing that I hate the most when I was doing broadcasting this past year. I'm not going to mention any names, but in that game you lost in the semis, cranking up, missing the net, and it's like, oh, there goes a free breakout. And sure as you know what, that's what happened to you, and they end up scoring. And that's little things make a big difference in the sport of hockey. Well, in general, in sports in general, but that's a big thing that just hit the net, hit the net, hit the net. I'm sure you say that more than once, coaching too. It happens, I'm sure, different times, but. Yeah. Anyway, so let's move on now. You mentioned some great names there, and by the way, Mr. Oshie, I had a good relationship with him when I was broadcasting. I talked to him a lot too, and may he rest in peace. And Marvin, and some good names over there that you were head involved with. So that's pretty cool. So moving up to the high school squad, I got hold on one second here. I'm slipping a little bit. Here we go. That squad right there.
Yeah,
most of the guys with the dyed hair, except for a few, and you're one of which that doesn't have the dyed hair in there. But that's squad.
That's dyed. That's dyed black. We were supposed to do, even numbers are black and odd numbers were gold or blonde. Okay. But some people pulled rank a little bit and went with the color that they wanted to. But I was kind of a lower guy on the totem pole, so I dyed it black. But yeah, otherwise I usually had kind of the Justin Bieber old school. Maybe some blonde highlights and whatnot. So no, the black wasn't natural. I grew up as a blonde, and it's kind of turned darker over the years. But yeah, that was dyed black.
I thought you guys that were just wearing black were going against the grain. Didn't we? Be part of the crowd, just kind of be different.
No,
you see that black and gold. You see that a lot. Well, yeah, that would make sense. Black and gold, because the black and gold club. Duh. Yeah. That's the too many pucks that hit me the day that I actually stopped. I should have caught that thing. What's wrong with me? Come on, Sid. Get with the game. Get with the game. But can you talk about that experience, the whole tournament, playing in that thing? And, doesn't matter if you scored or not scored or this or that. How many people can say that they played in the state of hockey and won a state title? That's just something. There's got to be some great memories from that tournament. I mean, can you talk about building up to that and then making it and then winning it all?
Yeah, you know what? It was unbelievable. And I was the sixth defenseman on that team, but I'm extremely proud of even making it. They had to work really, really hard, even just to be on that team. And you look at the guys that we had, it was, phenomenal roster, undefeated. But to even be on the squad was huge. And, the first game of the state tournament, I was lucky to be on the team, like I said, but got out there and was +1 in that game, limited ice time. In the second game against St. Thomas Academy, Jordan Schrader, but got out in limited time there to actually hit somebody, which was unusual for me. I was more like to be like a Nick Lidstrom stick on puck kind of guy. And then in the championship game, my ice time was pretty enjoyable because I got to be out there for warm-ups. And then the next time I touched the ice was to jump out to celebrate our game winner in OT. So it was a lot of fun. But like I said, I was on the team and had to work so hard to be on that team. And in Warroad, at least for me, and I think I speak for a lot of other guys, the biggest dream you have is to throw on the Warroad Warrior high school jersey and then to win a state championship. And that's what I wanted. Of course, you want to play D1 and you want to play in the NHL, but first and foremost, it's I want to play for the Warroad Warriors. And Roseau's like this too. With the youth hockey, we wear red, white, and blue, and then you got to earn the right to wear in Roseau the green and white, or in Warroad the black and gold, which I think is really, really cool. And so does
well, I have to interject on that because they did switch. They're all wearing the same colors now.
Oh,
it used
really?
to be that way. That used to be the old saying, you got to earn the green and white, just like over there. You got to earn the black and gold.
Wow.
But they went with the same color, so I was a little disappointed in that. But hey, I'm well away from there, so hope I didn't.
Maybe that's why they're slipping a little. Maybe that's why they're slipping a little bit.
I don't know. One can only imagine. But no, the numbers are down a little bit. But hey. You guys got bragging rights, and I don't know if you saw me take that picture. Speaking of Bantam tournaments, the Bantams beat our Bantams in the Class A tournament, and
yeah,
I bit the bullet because I had a bet with somebody here locally that played on the team with you, and
I
put on that Warroad jersey, and it was difficult. It was tough, Kirk, but
yeah,
a bet's a bet. But
I saw that. Yeah, that's with Bob Anacabby, I bet, Dave.
Yeah. How about that though? How about that though? Two northern teams that 20 miles apart, all the way down in Marshall, playing the state tournament title game. That's kind of crazy. So could they just go back home? Maybe play it on the way home and play in Bemidji or something. That would have been saving the trip down there.
I know.
That's not how it works. It's not how it works.
Well, that's for pretty high stakes. It was I mean, not the worst, but if it would happen where you go to a tournament and it's just a regular tournament, then you end up playing somebody you play all the time. It's a little bit frustrating, but when it's for a state championship, like it's almost as good as it gets playing Roseau for a state championship. Like that's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
and, especially when you win, of course, it's fun to win.
Yeah, you guys had the bragging rights on that. That's true. But I always jokingly say about tournaments. I never played on a title team or made it to the tournament myself. I was one of the last guys cut on the state consolation tournament team when Paulie Broughton and the boys played. But jokingly, Paul always used to say, he goes, "Well, I said, in Warroad or whoever goes up north, we'll always cheer for them. But we got no room in our trophy case for them single A trophies." I have to say, I had to get that dig in there and joke a little bit. But
I heard that Roseau moved up to Double A because they could never get past Warroad in Single A. So.
Yeah, some of my buddies from over there, how they get that dig on it. But it's been, you guys have had the better of the two, mind you. That's for sure. That's for sure. And I'm not going to say anything different than that. You guys got the upper hand for lately. But good for you. But we could jokingly say. We could jokingly go on about that forever, but I want to speak on this note. Back in the day when it was one class, I mean, it was much more of a ferocious. We didn't like each other. That's all it was. I mean, now these kids are playing year round and they play with each other in teams and they're real buddy. And it's not like it used to be. The rivalry is still there, and probably the best rivalry, well, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, in the state of Minnesota. It's just not as intense and rough and tumble as it used to be, so to speak. But your thoughts on that, by the way? What do you think about that?
Agreed. We used to, there'd be Minnesota selects, you'd go to a tournament and play for Team North. There was a North, East, South, and West, and you get the cool silk jersey. So maybe you'd have a guy there, but that's just one weekend. And there was some summer teams, there were Northern Wings. Me and Dude Marvin went up and played for a team called the Prairie Storm in Winnipeg. I kept playing for them for a couple of years after. So you'd kind of see some guys around, but it's not nearly what it is now, where there's so many guys playing year round. There's way more AAA summer teams. And so, yeah, guys get a lot more comfortable with each other and are buddy, which is great. But yeah, when you're friends, it is hard to, hate to say the word hate each other, but yeah, I mean, it was a big time rivalry. And there were some guys that were really disliked going both directions. And, I remember as a little kid when Rosa was still Class A, a game at the Gardens, all of us kids would always sit right back by the Zamboni, and we get to go out and do the nets sometimes. Albert would let us go out there, and we'd all be competing, trying to get out there to take the nets off the pegs and push them for the Zamboni. But then his kid, I remember in the paper, I think it said Hasbargen Homer, sent the Warriors to state. He batted one out of the air, and it was down in the end that we were, watching in, and the place was packed, and it was crazy. And I remember people, we're going to state, and it was so exciting. And you'd get all school off. I'd be home watching it on TV, of course. And yeah, it was phenomenal. But I have memories of that when Warroad was still playing Roseau in the sections and in section finals. And that's as good as it gets right there. And yeah, talk about a rivalry.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that we talk about, your opportunity to play on a title team, whether or not you played much on that particular game, you were there. I mean, that's the one thing I know when you talk about Neil Broughton, for instance. He won an NHL, Stanley Cup, NCAA, and Olympics, but never won a high school tournament. And I think that's something that, that's one thing that's cherished by all that ever played on it, in the tournament and won it. So you're one of a few elite out there that are able to take and say that, yeah, I was part of a championship team. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And yeah, you bring that up. I was talking to our athletic director, is Rachel Bergeson. Her kid, Titan Bergeson, is a stud for Moorhead High School team. And so they finally got their first state championship. I was there because we had stuff on campus these last couple of days, and then I drove down today, but we were talking. Her dad, Bucky Burgow, the famous Bucky Burgow from up there, the baseball field's named after him. But just how special it was for those kids to finally win. And a big reason they won is because guys stayed and finished out their high school careers there, which in Warroad you see almost all the time as guys staying because you can't get those years back. You can't get those memories back if you get a chance to win a state championship, how much that means to the town and how much that'll be remembered. For those kids up in Moorhead now to win the first ever state championship, people will remember that forever. And so it's I love when kids stay in high school and then if you get a chance to win a state championship, there's nothing better than that. And because winning in junior, winning whatever, I mean, you said it there, Neil Broughton, right, talks about not winning a state championship. So if you win a Stanley Cup, but you still talk about high school as being the best memories of your life. I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
it should be listened to.
And I've interviewed some guys that played in it, and others that didn't win it. But I mean, it is a memory that's cherished, going back many years. It's something you can take to your grave. And
Yeah.
I go to the tournament every year whenever I can. I try to make it there just to see people and just the memories of bumping into people that you either played against or know. And I bump into people like Son, for instance, and people like that. It's just great to talk to folks. Hockey's a close knit community, and that's what I love about it so much. So. I want to bring jumping up, and I want to see how you react to this question. By the way, it's high school related. I think it was during high school. So, what was your biggest scoring goal in high school playing hockey?
I had a couple big ones my senior year. Actually, like didn't score a ton, but had a couple big ones against Eastside in each of the games we played against them. Actually, had a big one against the U.S. Women's Olympic team. So we played him at the Gardens, and I scored the first goal of the game, put us up 1-0. Alan McBride got the winner on a backhand actually, and they scored a goal that was kind of under a little bit of controversy. We don't know if it went in. Tyler Potts, our goalie, would say that it didn't, that it just hit the crossbar, but we played on, and the refs talked it amongst each other and decided it went in. But so yeah, I scored against the U.S. Women's Olympic team, got a pass. I think it was maybe Bryce Ravendal, and that gave me a nice feed. I had walked down into the slot from the point, snuck behind the winger, and put it low blocker, and was lucky enough to be on ESPN. Got on Sports Center. Oh. So yeah, there's a VHS tape kicking around somewhere. The librarian, and I feel bad I forgetting her name now, but the librarian taped it for me and gave it. But yeah, on ESPN said something like, Warroad boys hockey, the new favorite for the women's gold medal. And then it went and showed the highlight, like Kirk Olimb shot in a goal, put the Warriors up, and they go on to win 2-1. So that was a big one. But I'd say the biggest goal I scored was in the section final against Thief River, put us up 2-0. But it's that one brings back tough memories because we gave up a 2-goal lead and they beat us in overtime. But I put us up 2-0 in front of a packed house at the Gardens in the section final, and that was pretty exciting. Just got one, picked off a attempted clear. Guy tried to flip it up out of the zone. I think it had just changed. Brent Munshaugen came off the ice. I jumped on. We were going every other, and picked it off at the blue, skated in, kind of fanned on the shot almost, and it somehow snuck in 5-hole, and then the big windmill celly into the bench, and it was just crazy. So that was the biggest one I scored for sure. But those other ones were good too. I didn't score many, but some of them were pretty big.
I had to bring that up because I tell you what, Kirk, not too many people can make it on ESPN. That's why I heard rumors about it. So I had to ask you that one. So
okay, I didn't know if you knew that or not. I thought you were just asking because I had so few goals.
I just heard rumors it was against a women's team or a girls team. I'm like, oh, really? I got to hear more about this. So now you got more details. But ESPN, that's pretty cool that you're on there. So awesome.
On Sports Center.
For you. Yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, you got that title, and you mentioned some of the players on there and coaches and such, and moving on. How did you end up, or how did you decide, to go up to Canada? Because I was going to bring up some of these. You played up there in the was it the SJ or whatever it's called, or the MJ? And there's so many different leagues now. I can't keep track.
Yeah.
But how did you end up in that league up there in Canada? I mean, was there something you had because of the relationships in Manitoba, playing there in some of those teams that you played on in the winter or spring or fall teams, or what was the story with that?
It's funny, like all these kids now have advisors and they have this big plan about where they're going to go and what they're going to do. Like I had applied to the University of Minnesota and was, could have gone there as just a student. And honestly, I don't even really remember how it all went down. I know Henry Boucher had a good amount to do with it, and his son JP and I, really, really close friends. We were both born on the same day in the same hospital, about 15 minutes apart. So my parents
didn't know that.
In Roseau Hospital. Yeah, my mom tells a story, and my dad too. Darren talks about Henry just being proud as can be, wearing a big cowboy hat the day that JP and I were born, February 4th, 1988, the year that Uncle Larry won Mr. Hockey. But no, I think Henry had a lot to do with it. He got a hold of the Portage Terriers, and then they had come and watched us. We sent some film up. So there were 4 of us that went up there. It was me, JP, Tyler Potts, the goalie, and Bobby Anacabby. And just because JP and I were born in 88, we were, beginning of the year. Tyler was in 87 of December, and Bobby, Albert Hasbargen used to call him Grandpa because he was actually born in December of 1986. And I was February 1988. So he only had 1 year of junior eligibility, but we didn't know anything about how it all worked really. And he was a good player. So us four went up there and went to camp. And I didn't really even have like a backup plan at that point. It's just like, yeah, I'm going to Canada to play hockey. So I don't know what I would have done had I not made the team. But JP and I made it. And so stuck with the Portage Terriers, went back up there. We make the team, go home for a few days or a week, and then head back up, and you get in a billet house. And I had no idea what I was doing, what I was getting myself into. First day of practice, got to switch to Sherwood sticks. So they hand you a wood Sherwood 9950, Spezza curve. You don't even get a choice of curve. It's just like right or left. And, no flex, no anything. These kids now have these one pieces and all that. So here's your wood stick. Yeah, here's your wood stick. Here's your visor to wear. Never worn a visor in my life. And went out there and had a pretty tough practice. And Blake Spiller was the coach. It was his first year. He's still the coach up there now, and they've had tremendous success, especially after getting rid of me. But he pulled me in and goes, hey, you had a bad practice today. Like, I was just scared out of my mind. He's like, practice is going to be really important for you. And, he was absolutely right. But I was a young 18-year-old kid and didn't know what I was getting myself into. But yeah, lasted 14 games up there till about Thanksgiving, and then got dealt over to the Thunder Bay Bulldogs in the SIJHL. But no, getting back to the question, it just sort of happened. I talked to a couple North American League teams, some of the teams in the old Minnesota Junior League, which was like Junior B. But they had talked about having to pay money, and we had no money to pay for hockey. Never paid for hockey in my life growing up in Warroad. Everything's free. And my parents were working at Christian Brothers and all the stuff to make it work. So there was no money for me to pay for even billets or to pay for a team fee. So yeah, went up to Canada and everything was taken care of. Went up there with a couple $100 and my hockey stuff and some clothes, and cell phone didn't work. And I didn't have a car. I rode with JP up there and he was kind of my ride. And it was, looking back, it was kind of crazy.
I bet. Yeah, young 18-year-old kid, just some new experience. I see Thunder Bay. Is that where you guys won the championship?
No. So JP and I got traded to the Thunder Bay Bulldogs together, and they threw us. We didn't have a billet, an adult there. They brought us to this apartment. It was above a wine shop on Simpson Street, which is like the toughest street in Thunder Bay. Big steel door at the bottom, and some stairs go up, and there's this huge living room, kitchen area, and then 3 bedrooms. One bedroom, there was a guy there living with his girlfriend, actually, Dougie. And I think Jen was maybe her name. I mean, great people, and she was super nice. So the girlfriend was living there. The next room was 2 other guys, and then there was like 5 of us shoved in this big room in the back. I had an air mattress to sleep on, actually, when I first got up there, and no adult supervision. They gave us $200 a month Canadian to go grocery shopping for ourselves, and you just figure it out. But it was a lot of fun.
We won't ask the dark details when you're 18 in Canada. The rules up there in Canada. I spent all the time playing in the Manitoba Junior League Baseball League, so I know how it goes up in Canada when you're.
It was 19 in Ontario, so I had to. Okay. Yeah, it was Super Bowl Sunday when I turned 19, actually, up in Thunder Bay. I remember that. But no, it was fun on the ice. I got to play a lot. Like, our team wasn't very good, but got to play a ton. I was playing. By the end, they had me playing some forward too, which on that Bantam team we talked about earlier, I played some D to start, and then I played some forward by the end. So a little bit of everything. In squirts, I played forward and then played D, and then in junior, I was playing D, but on that team, for whatever reason, the D started playing forwards, the forwards started playing D, coach trying to mix it up to get things going. But I put up some points, actually. I think I had 18 points or so, and it was a lot of fun. I got to play a lot. It probably wasn't, well, it was good for development on the ice for sure. Could have been a little bit better development off ice as far as like weight room and getting after it and making better decisions. But I learned a lot and got to play, and it was fun. So yeah, I was in Thunder Bay for the rest of that 18-year-old season, went back to Warroad over the summer, and then got traded in the off season back to the Manitoba League to the OCN Blizzard up in La Palma.
I was going to say, That's quite a difference from Thunder Bay. At least you got a metro area. Kind of, I don't know how big it is there metro population wise now, but up to the Pie area there, you're way up there, buddy. That had been really a culture shock. I mean,
It,
we grew up north, but not that far north.
yeah, it was like 10 hours north. So my sister Madison gave me a ride to the Winnipeg airport, which is where the bus was picking up everybody a certain day, certain time. Some guys were flying in, some guys were driving in. So she brought me up there and dropped me off with my hockey bag. And then I had another hockey bag that I had washed and everything, but that was what I put my clothes in. So I had 2 hockey bags, one for clothes, one for hockey stuff, and dropped me off at the bus. So I got on the bus. We drove, feel like it was like 8 hours north of Winnipeg, drove up there. We got to our billet house, and me and another guy, Corbin Ducharme was his name. They read your names at the front of the bus. You get off, you go into the house you're staying at. We were sharing a room and borrowing our billets PT Cruiser to drive ourselves to practice. And it was quite a situation. It was an experience, cool experience. Played, preseason there, the exhibition. Got to go up to Flin Flon, actually was a pretty cool one. Played up in Flin Flon. And actually thinking back, I scored on my own net that game. So that was
well, you don't want to admit that now. Come on, that's not something you want to bring up.
It's funny what comes to your mind, but it's a really cool barn up there in Flin Flon. They were in the Saskatchewan League, but it's just like
a lot of history there. Yeah, a lot of history there. Bobby Clark and guys like that up there.
Yeah, it was cool. And then played a few regular season games. It was going okay. But yeah, I just didn't think it was a great fit. And so asked for a trade and then got traded from there to Neepawa. And they were the Neepawa natives at the time. So I missed the Greyhound. I was supposed to be getting on a Greyhound bus, but I had to go back and pack up all my stuff at the billet house. Took too long saying my goodbyes, got back to the rink. The coach wasn't too happy about that, and I don't blame him. He's still coaching up there too. Doug Headley, he's in Dauphin now and has done really, really well. Again, better since getting rid of me as a theme. And I had to have another guy, Adam Avison, give me a ride in his red truck. He was injured, but was there. We had a good drive and talk down to Swan Valley, where Neepawa was playing that night. Again, had my hockey bag of hockey gear and hockey bag of clothes. He dropped me off at the rink. I watched that game, jumped on. They had a black school bus. It was a school bus, and it was painted black with a big, so their name was the Neepawa Natives, with a big logo, which is like the Chicago Blackhawks or Warroad Warriors logo, painted on the bus with an area for gear in the back. So jumped on that bus, got a ride from the rink to my new billet house there, and then played for Neepawa for a while too. So it was quite.
Yeah, I see that year you had the 3 different teams. So there Dryden was the next one. So I jokingly said to Samsonite man, the old commercial back in the day, the guys running around with the luggage there. He's no longer around us, and that was OJ. So that's why I don't want to refer to it. But a guy that had a suitcase, he traveled a lot there that year. So he ended up down in Dryden. So that experience, you guys were in the playoffs, I see. And is that the year that you won, or the following year?
Yeah, that was the year. And, it was interesting. So I was in Neepawa, and again, it was going fine. I just, at that point, and there had always been people kind of telling me, like, what are you doing? Why are you even playing junior hockey? And, talking to Bobby on the phone, even today, he was talking about a kid that he knows who was maybe going to play junior, maybe not. And he's like, back then I was thinking to myself, like, what are Kirk and JP doing up there, kind of wasting their time playing junior hockey? But now looking back, it's like, it wasn't really a waste at all. And look at where we are in life now. Like, there's not some huge gap where you missed out. But at the time I was getting phone calls and talking to them. Bobby was up, he was in Grand Forks. I don't think he was going to UND, but Zach Larson, who I mentioned earlier, our other buddy Travis Stein, there was a group of them living in Grand Forks, and they had beer pong tournaments and all of that. And so I was going to go and be a student at UND. So I was thinking this was around, I don't know, maybe November or so, late November. I went and stayed with them for like 4 days, a long weekend. And by the 4th day, the Dryden coach had been calling me. They wanted me to come up there. He's like, we're first place in the league. We're not struggling at all. You've been on some teams that have been struggling. Like, you need to come to a good team. And I think you'll have a lot more fun. And finally I'm like, okay, I'll come up there. So, got got back to Warroad, jumped in my mom's van. She brought me up to Dryden, and yeah, it was a good team. Unfortunately, that first weekend they lost to the Thunder Bay Bearcats on the road, and I had just been doing what I described, hanging out with Bobby in Grand Forks, and so not taking care of myself all that great. And we got bag skated my first practice with them, and Graham Harrington was a goalie. He ended up being a third string goalie for UND actually after his 20-year-old year. Phenomenal shape, could really skate, and he was about this close to beating me. And I remember Randy Lalashnik yelling, "Don't let him beat you! Don't let him beat you!" And I was ready to puke, but I kept battling, and I got better from there. Thankfully, they were probably wondering what they signed up for with me that first day. But
you were being a future college student at the time, having a little fun. And he felt it too. So.
Yeah, but we had a good team. It's funny. I think I had a point in my first game, and one of the guys was like, "Oh yeah, guys who come in, they always put up points like the first game, and then they just don't get anything after that. They're bad after that." And for whatever reason, I was playing well. Like I played good hockey, played a big role on the team, but just wasn't putting up points. But no, we won the SIJHL championship. We beat Scriber in 7 games. Then we beat the Thunder Bay North Stars in 5, I want to say, and then got to go play in the Dudley Hewitt Cup, which was in Newmarket, Ontario. We beat out the NOJHL champion Sudbury, and then lost to the host Newmarket in overtime, unfortunately, in the semis. And then Oakville was the team that went on and went to the RBC, because back then you have to go. There's only a handful of teams that make it. Now, if you win your league, like you win the SIJHL, you get to go right to the Centennial Cup, they call it. But back then it was different. But yeah, good team. Great team, actually. Great buddies from there, great memories, and was fun to win that championship too.
Well, I got, speaking of that team, I pulled up the roster, and I think we talked about prior to us going on air here, broadcasting this and recording this. There was a guy on there, and I only bring it up because I just listened to the Kanapka interview on Spit and Chicklets. I just said, I got to listen to him. He's good. And he has, maybe I'm wrong, but I think he said he's the last guy in the NHL to get 300 penalty minutes. I don't think there's anybody since he retired. Now, there's a guy by the name, here I pulled it up, Chris Pitt. And by the way, I'm going to preface this with this, people that are watching this. This guy's 5'6". I pulled his record. I pulled him up. He was a forward. 5'6" is how big he was. And he scored, he had some good points. It looked like he had 50-some points in that season with you. 56, as a matter of fact, in 49 games. But here's the crazy thing. 323 penalty minutes. 323. Count that. That's a lot. And the guy's 5'6". So was he Kenny the Rat Linsman? Brad Marchand, just a rat out there? You got to have some good stories about that character. Holy cow. The guy can score, assist, and he's also got some PIMs. So tell me something about this kid, because this got to be a good career.
Yeah, Kidder was a beauty, really good player too. But yeah, he's a little guy. Brad Marchand would be a good comparison because he could play. He scored the game winner in Game 7 against Scriber. Or no, is it maybe that was Game 5 when we won the championship? It was a 1-0, and Kidder had the goal, top shelf, where Mama hides the cookies, as Mike Ebling would say, our announcer up there. But no, Kidder could play, but yeah, he really got under guys' skin. When I was playing for the Thunder Bay Bulldogs, actually, he was playing for Dryden, and he got into, or kind of went after me one time, and he had gotten a penalty. I maybe just looked at him kind of wrong, and then he started chirping at me. He looked down. I had my socks full Euro tuck over the back. He chirped me about that. Then he chirped me about the stick I was using. Then he chirped me about the helmet I was wearing. And then finally he's just sick style, buddy. And he went to the box. So he did stuff like that all the time. And then when I played with him, he's just a great, fun guy to be around. Had a blast, but he's clever. He's a clever guy who can have a little bit of a mouth on him at times, and go after guys and get the best of them too. And physically, he might not have been that big in stature, but he played big. He played tough. There was when he got traded to Thunder Bay Bearcats my 20-year-old year, he was playing against us, and one of our best players, Chad Liley, went on to play college hockey and do well at Northland and at Oklahoma, and he's an advisor now. But Kit took a run at him and kind of knocked him out cold. And he skated past our bench, which was a bunch of guys that he used to play with, and he did the nap thing.
The nap thing? Oh,
and he got tossed, but he was doing so. Yeah, he was fighting guys. He was getting under people's skin. He was instigating. He was scoring. But yeah, great guy, fun guy to be around. And yeah, just a character. But yeah, hopefully he's doing well. I haven't talked to him a little bit now. I think he might be up in Winnipeg somewhere. But yeah, good hockey player, good guy, tough to play against, that's for sure. But a good guy, great guy to have on your team.
Exactly. I mean, that's just listening like the Konopka interview and some of these interviews I've listened to over the years, and just guys have been around that were just, considered tough guys. They're some of the best guys. And, that's a different, I mean, Kit scored 50-some points. That's pretty dang good.
Yeah.
But the minutes, penalties, I mean, that's quite a few for a young man at his age. And it kind of reminded me of Slapshot. Kind of thinking Slapshot. He said, he wasn't probably banned from the league or kicked out of the league, but kind of harkened back to the Slapshot days with 300-some penalty minutes. So I just had to bring that off of that squad.
Well, that's kind of what it was like a little bit. It was quite an experience. I mean, there's some tough guys. I remember there was this French Canadian that came in for the Thunder Bay Bearcats. He was just, an animal. There were some big guys. There was a kid named Brad Pulowski who played for Scriber, then played for the Bearcats. I want to say he was an enforcer in the O for one of the big name guys. Like he was their enforcer when he was like 17 years old. And it was just a beast. But there were some tough kids playing up there in that league, in the Manitoba League too. But in the SI, like there were some really good players, and then there were some guys that were there for kind of different reasons.
You knew their role. They knew their role.
It was tough, and one guy on our team, Darren Turner, D Turns, he liked to fight, and like he'd put on a big show like at center ice. Like the elbow pads would come off, there'd be like the big circle around. It was playing it up for the crowd. The music would get going. Yeah, my buddy Carson Shields gotten some. There were some different guys that would like to be a little bit of showman out there, and it was for the fans, putting on a show for the people up in Drytown. It was a fun place to play.
Well, that's juniors and some of these smaller communities. That's they want excitement. That they go to the game, have a few pops, and they get into it. I mean, some of these towns just really get into it, and it's awesome to see. This junior hockey. So you had one more year there in Dryden, I saw in the playoffs again, but you guys finished with, I don't know how you did there, but what do we see here? They had 43, 49. Now remember that's your stats. So 49 games, you scored 23 points that year in that second year there.
Yeah,
67 PIMs. So he got a little bit more feisty from 37. You doubled your PIMs almost.
I did.
Second year. So what happened there? Did you actually drop the mitts once or twice or something? Get a tenner or what?
I finally did. You know what? I was a little bit of a late bloomer. Like a lot of the guys that I played with in Warroad I swear they were grown men by the time they were Bantams. And I was still growing up, as I got to the 16, 17, 18 and hitting the weight room a little bit more and getting stronger. And something kind of turned a little bit once I left for junior. Toughened up. It's kind of like the movie Youngblood. You got to get sent back to the farm to toughen up. But yeah, so gotten a couple scraps finally. I did in my 19-year-old year or two. I think maybe the first one was actually up in OCN when I was playing for Neepawa. Gotten a pretty good fight. You used to be able to find it online on like the hockeyfights.com against a guy named Dan.
I should have did my research. What's wrong? I should have did my research. I would love to see that.
But no, we were both throwing. So gotten a couple 19-year-old year, 18-year-old year I was still pretty soft. 19 a little bit tougher, and then 20-year-old kind of started to get more. So yeah, I got in a couple scraps and put up some decent points. Nothing special. I was always more like a stay-at-home defensive defenseman, good stick, smart player. Wasn't going to be overly flashy. I was never that great of a skater. I was never that big and strong. I never really shoot that hard, but get in the right place and pride myself on being a smart player. And so yeah, I did well enough to at least find a spot at Hamline the following year. Uncle Larry helped out a lot with that. He played with Scotty Bell for the Gophers. Scotty was the coach at Hamline at the time, and I think they didn't mind having a guy who was probably slated to just be an extra guy come up there and being a good student helped out too. I was a straight A student, so that worked, and having the Olimb last name, and so yeah, I went on a visit. Well, actually, I think I committed and everything to Hamline. I didn't even go down and look at it. Just said, I'm coming. And so went
I
down.
think if I recall, I didn't have it pulled up. Or I mean, look at that, by the way. I know a couple of guys that played with a couple of those guys in men's league and stuff when they're coaching assistants. I think Mark Malachuk may have been a coach there, and I think was
Mel's
Corey.
beauty. Corey Leyland,
yeah, I did both those characters. So good eggs, good hockey people. So
for sure. And Leyland played with Larry too for the Gophers.
Yes.
So some good connections there. And Leyland's been great to me. He's been a huge mentor and influence, and he was good enough to let me come on and help coach at Hamline, after my playing days. But he was an assistant my freshman year. Freshman year, and then I believe he went and either coached in Europe or coached junior after that.
I think Europe, and maybe it was junior. Maybe it was I forget the Aberdeen. I forget what squad he was on. But then he became a head coach there at Hamline for some years, didn't he?
Yeah, did really well. I think they won the MIAC playoffs his first year as a coach after, so my freshman year had a really good team. Chris Berenguer, absolute stud. Smokey Bear, his dad's Juan Berenguer, the pitcher. We had Brian Aragoni, Kyle Kerr was fantastic. Kerr was a great story because Scotty tells it all the time. So he was the Iron Man always for us, like strongest guy, do the Iron Man competition. But I guess Kerr got cut from his high school team at Elk River and just played junior gold. And then he ended up being, I think he was an All-American at Hamline. So it shows you that, hey, you can keep working at it. And just because one thing doesn't work out, could keep going. And Scotty had a knack of finding guys like that. And, he had Cupperman. There was a bunch of guys. My buddy Danny Vranick transferred in from New Hampshire. Spencer Anderson, his dad was coaching in the NHL at the time. He played some major junior. I think he was on the team with Kitchener when they won the Memorial Cup and they dropped the trophy and it broke. I'm pretty sure he was on that team. Kelly Plood, who was like 27 at the time, was just a stud hockey player. We had a great team my freshman year. Jared Hummel, the list goes on. But Bo Christian.
I gotta bring up Bo in a second here because I was just thinking about that. The goalie union on that. I believe that's Dave's son, right? If I remember right. Tell me this. I gotta say, I'm joking about it. Remember, Kirk, keep in mind. Bo, 13. Let's see here. You had 13 games played, 1 point. Bo played 25 games that year. He had 2 points as a goalie.
Leave the puck behind the net. Leave the puck behind the net for Smokey Berenguer, and good things happen. But I was proud of that 1 point. That wasn't expected. I remember like a couple first days practice or in the year at one point, Brian Aragoni came up to me and he was being nice. Like he's like, hey, just keep working, and even if you don't play very much like this year, like just keep working at it and stick with it. And I'm like, okay. Honestly, I had no idea like how good the team was and how much talent there was. Like I said, I didn't even visit or anything. It was just a couple of phone calls. Like after I said I was going, then I jumped on Hockey DB and saw the guys that were playing there. And I'm like, wow, okay, I hope I make this team. And
had a good squad.
Well, yeah, and funny story. So Scotty gave us like Hamline breezers and the Hamline equipment when you get there. But it was kind of bulky, and I was genuinely worried that I was going to get cut. So I was still wearing my old breezers for these like inter squad games we were doing. And he came up, he's like, Olimb, you don't like the breezers or what's going on? I'm like, I just want to, really want to make sure they're not that comfortable and not broken in. Like, I just want to make sure I make the team. He's like, you're going to be on the team. Like, just wear the effing breezers. So I'm like, okay, I will. So that felt good. But yeah, I was scared because there were some really, really, really good players. And yeah, that first year I got in and out of the lineup. There was a guy that wasn't able to play. I think some injuries or things that happened. But also is a funny, memorable story. My first game was at the MIAC Showcase. I think it was the second game of the year. Would have been healthy the first game. Got to play the second, and you play MIAC opponents, but they didn't count for MIAC points. But it was against Concordia.
Back in the day, that used to be called the Turkey Tournament. We used to play over the Bloomington Ice Garden back in the 80s.
I think it was at Fogarty. Pretty sure. But yeah, I was against Concordia and jumped out there and went really well playing D. I almost scored. I should have scored. There was a delayed penalty. Timmy Olsen got the puck at the point. I saw the ref's arm go up. I went to the net and he found me in the slot. I left the winger there and put it right on my tape. I got a shot. Actually, Jake Fottensdahl is the goalie that stopped it. He was a Roseau kid and then went to Warroad. But yeah, and Scotty's like, what were you doing down there? I'm like, oh, delayed penalty. He's like, oh, okay. So I think he kind of saw that I was maybe a smart player then, and we won the game, I want to say, and I played pretty well. And after the game in the locker room, Scotty's like, how about Olimb being an effing gamer? And I'm like, am I not good in practice? And everybody kind of started laughing. And so yeah, I figured out there that I'm not really a practice guy. I don't always look the part, but in the game, maybe that's playing so much hockey over the years in Warroad. If you get yourself in the right spot, you can overcome. He also said I was really good at, I think, hiding my flaws was the quote, which I'll take that too. Like, really play to your strengths, hide your flaws. So yeah, it was, but yeah, it was fun that freshman year. We got beat by St. Thomas, unfortunately, in the semifinal of the MIAC tournament in overtime. But that team, like, we won the MIAC the next year, regular season and playoffs. But man, that team, my first year, we were really, really good. But Gustavus was a wagon that year too. I think they might have the player of the year. But no, it was some good teams that Scotty coached there. But yeah, 13 games played. At least I got 1 point. It's better than 0.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I had to just joke because being a goalie, hey, I'm in the goalie union. I'm always going to, back my goalies and hey.
Did they have plus minus?
Yeah, good question. No, they don't see plus minus here.
I bet it was good. I bet the plus minus.
It's blank. Yeah, I'm sure it was very good. But looking at the roster, you mentioned these names like Aragoni and Behringer and some of these guys. I'm like, I'm getting old. I remember those names when they were playing high school and broadcasting games. State tournament and playoffs. Because Aragoni, Hill Murray guy, if I remember that name. I think it was in. Chris. Yeah. He was an Eden Prairie guy.
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
Yeah, Danny Brannick played for Eden Prairie, and Lee Smith tells a story. I was, best man at the wedding, one of my best friends, and 3 hat tricks in 3 games in a row. I think the only guy Eden Prairie to do that. So Lee Smith talks about that story all the time. Danny Brannick from Florida originally, big Tampa Bay Lightning guy, but moved up to Eden Prairie. Mark Melnichuk actually was a big part of that, playing summer hockey, and Mel was coaching, got Brannick up to EP. But yeah, he was a stud. Jordan Van Gilder was a stud for Centennial High School. Yes. I mean, the list was Alex Lundbaum from Roseau. Lundy was a stud.
Yep. I saw that too. I forgot about Cat Kid. I got to throw the Roseau ties in there a little bit too.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had some good players on that team.
Hummel was a Mr. Hockey finalist, I remember, with Oshie and Brian Lee. Like, it was a really talented team. Like, it was crazy that I was even on the team. We were SD3 Hamline. Like, it was good. People don't understand the level. Like, they think
I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I don't mean to talk, but if I don't, I forget stuff, Kirk. From the days I did stop pucks.
Sure.
Division III hockey, I think a lot of people don't understand how good it is, like you said, because first of all, these guys, a lot of guys they go to D1. Some of those guys, and they're like borderline. They're not playing. I'll go to D3. And they're not ripping it up at D3. Thinking let's go there and I'll rip it up. But there's some solid hockey, tight, and it's some of the best for your bang for your buck. Small arenas. I tell people, if you can get it, you want to go to a good game, a fast-paced game, and energy in that. Check out Division III hockey. It's pretty damn amazing. And a lot of those guys too can still go on and play pro hockey overseas and in the States here too. So it's really, really, really improved over the years. And that's a whole different topic too. Not just that, but club hockey, ACHA hockey. I haven't even talked about that. A lot of these guys that, they go to play school, but some of these club hockey games are crazy. I mean, you're looking down south. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? From that perspective, going, playing D3, but now club hockey. There's going to be a few of those teams, in my opinion, in the future that will go Division I, but they're nuts. I mean, they're nuts. Liberty and some of those teams down the SEC. What are your mindset on that? What are you thinking about that from a standpoint? How that will affect you?
It's going to be interesting. Getting back to just the level of play as far as D3. Like, even back when I was playing, we named all those guys and how good they were, and it's just gotten better since then. Like, there used to at least be some high school kids that would jump in and whatever, but it's just an unbelievable level and gotten better and better. And yeah, you're exactly right with the D1 guys coming in thinking it's going to be easy, and it's hard. You got to have a group of guys that are willing to work and put in the time and effort and really bond together, the culture and the chemistry. And, they're playing for the love of the game at that point, and pride. Mostly you can keep going and playing, but it's a great level and fun to watch, like you said. But no, with the club hockey, it's interesting. One of the goalies on our team, Matt Cooper, he was from Duluth East, and he ended up transferring to Iowa State. This is back when I was playing, and he got to play for that Team USA in the World University Games over in Italy. Yeah. And then he actually played some pro hockey after playing club hockey. So there's different routes for everyone. But no, it'll be interesting to see with this new CHL rule and how it all is going to work out. You know, there's a lot of talented players that are choosing the ACHA route. It's all about what you want, what you're looking for. You know, like if you're looking to go to a huge school and go to like a Big Ten, you know, a big football game, like let's use Iowa State as an example. Like, you know, you could go to an Iowa State football game, all of that, but it's going to be a totally different experience than coming to Concordia. So, I mean, if you're looking for a small school, you get to know your professors, you get to know your peers, your other classmates. I mean, there's just a ton of positives to D3, but if you want that big school experience while still playing hockey, you can go to, you know, a UNLV or a Texas or a Florida and all these SEC schools and ACC. It'll really be interesting to see what happens. And if they do make the jump to NCAA Division I hockey, hopefully they do, and there gets to be more NCAA teams. But I don't know how it's going to work out. It's really a changing landscape right now, and rapidly so. So yeah, trying to keep up with all that. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of good players out there playing in a lot of different places. And yeah, everybody's route's going to be a little different. We try to find the right guys and right chemistry. I love our guys that we have at Concordia. A ton of really good players, good people, good students. So yeah, if you want a good education, I think a big part of it is getting a really good education at a MIAC school, playing for something that really matters. Like if you're a Minnesota kid and you're growing up, you know, of course the goal is to play for Minnesota or UND, but otherwise, like you're playing against a bunch of guys that you played against all the way through youth hockey, through high school, and you're battling for a MIAC title. Like that means something. And like people in Minnesota, if you say you won a MIAC title, that means something to them. If you win some random, you know, ACHA or whatever, some different conference nobody's heard of, it's a little bit different. And not that matters all that much, but it's cool to have something to talk about when you're at the bar, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because those are memories too. You kind of jumped ahead of me there because I was going to get to that next point about, you know, from playing at Hamline to then becoming an assistant coach there. How did that all come into play? Was that Bell? Was that Leyland, Melnichuk, whoever? I didn't look at the coach, but who influenced you to do that? I mean, what happened there? You're going to school, obviously, for a lawyer.
I was a lawyer at that time. So yeah, that's kind of a long story, but went to Hamline, graduated magna cum laude from Hamline. A guy named Tim Ostrut he's a lawyer and he was the academic advisor for athletics at the time. And he's, you know, helped me pick my classes. I took an intro to legal studies class. I got an A. I'm like, oh, I'll be a lawyer. That's a good job. Did really well on the LSAT, fortunately, and was deciding between the U of M and William Mitchell. Mitchell gave me like 90% scholarship to go versus U of M 25%. So I took the money and glad I did, especially now being a hockey coach. But yeah, you know, kind of gave up playing a little bit for a while there. We had the Fighting Eel Pelts hockey team, so did like some beer leagues, and we had our law school team, and then became a lawyer. And I started I wanted to get back into it or be in the rink some more because I was missing hockey. And so I helped out a guy named Chris Nye with the Bantams. Pat Griswold, the current coach for Holy Angels, is who introduced me to Coach Nye, and I helped him as an assistant on the St. Paul Capitals Bantam A's. And then the next year they asked me to be the head coach for the Bantam A's. I started doing some HP stuff, you know, with Teddy Cheeseborough and Mike Sajati.
Ted. Good old Ted.
Yeah. Yeah, Teddy's the man. He's a lawyer too. Mo Hardwick, Griner, is the one who introduced me to Teddy. So you can see the hockey world. I mean, you know how it goes. But so yeah, I don't know. And then at some point I realized that I hated being a lawyer, to be honest with you.
One thing led to another, right? You know, the thing about, you know, I look back in life, you know, and this is something about when I do these things, and I'll talk about later, you know, advice at the end. But there's a saying, and I actually have a card. I got a card here. I want to read it because it kind of correlates to what you're talking about, doing what you enjoy and what you love. And he's since passed away. I think Dennis Whaley says, chase your passion, not your paycheck.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things is, you know, choose your passion, not your pension. Is another way to say it. So don't stop. You know, you'll find that, wow, someday I should have did this. Someday I should have done that. You're always shopping in the someday aisle.
Yeah. You know, that's what I did. So like, you know, got a great job out of law school, did well. I graduated actually summa cum laude from law school and won some awards for legal writing, some different things. That I had an externship with a federal magistrate judge, Tony Leung, got him to come to our party at the firm. Was at McAllister & Fargione, which is a fantastic firm. They don't advertise, small boutique personal injury firm, but a lot of people would say arguably the best personal injury firm in the state.
Wow.
We actually we write the textbook, or they write the textbook. I helped at the time for like no fault automobile insurance law. So like there's a class that Paul McAllister teaches at Mitchell. You know, I took his class and got the best grade in the class actually, which was good. But no, it was going great, and I mean, it was making money. But yeah, it doesn't buy happiness. Fortunately, I met my wife, Amanda.
It doesn't hurt though. I always say, you know, money ranks right up there with air and water there, Kirk, along with food. But you know, if you're miserable, you know, it is what it is.
It paid for an engagement ring and paid for our wedding. And I met my wife, Amanda, in law school. And so that was the best reason I went. And she's still a lawyer and supported me in that dream to go pursue hockey. So I was still at the firm. I met with a lot of people trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and ended up meeting with Corey Leyland. I remember we met at the Mall of America because it was close to where our firm was. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, you can help out at Hamline this year." I'm like, "Oh, do you need an assistant?" And he's like, "Well, no, not really, but I'll, you know, make room for you." And you know, I asked what would be better. Would it be better for me to coach Bantams, or would it be better as the head coach? You know, I have a lot of responsibility, or just be an assistant and kind of push pucks and learn. He's like, definitely, as far as the resume goes, to come and help at Hamline. So he was nice enough to bring me on as a volunteer assistant while still doing some legal work, of course. I actually was driving a little bit of Uber and Lyft on the side too to make some extra money. You know, because I wasn't at the firm full time anymore. I still had some cases in the pipeline that we're going to work out, and you know, it's all on contingency fee. So you know, a couple of those checks helped pay for the wedding and everything. And yeah, so that 1 year at Hamline as an assistant, I learned a ton under Corey Leyland, Mike McMillan, Dave Prokop, some really great coaches and great people.
Good hockey names there. Yep. McMac. I got to ask you this though, and I want to read something here, Kirk, if you don't mind. We're talking about the legal side and that law and that, but this is you got to comment on this story I heard, because I found it there, and it was at Mitchell Law. This was in an article posted on July 10th, 2022. And I'll just read the beginning, and you got to comment on this, okay? It says, there was a moment back at panic for Kirk Olimb, graduate of 16, just before his first courtroom appearance as a junior associate. This gets good. His teeth fell out.
Yeah.
Specifically, the 5-tooth bridge that filled the void from several front teeth lost during his years as a hockey player. Thanks to fast thinking and staying calm under pressure, skills in both hockey and law needed, Olimb got everything back into place long enough to give the opening statement of that case. So, how'd that go? I mean, was that kind of, oh my God, you know, like you're in the spot and then your teeth fall. Like, how do you?
Yeah.
He said they were calmly got him back in, but that had to have been quite a earth-shattering, shaking moment for a second when you're in front of the, you know, but ready to talk about a court case.
Well, so fortunately, it wasn't in front of the jury. It was actually in the basement of Hennepin County Courthouse. I was sitting there with Aaron Aiken, a good friend of mine and great lawyer. So he was helping me with the case. It was actually, he was doing most everything, and I was there to kind of learn and got to help out. But yeah, I was eating a bagel in the basement of Hennepin County Courthouse and took a bite of it, and my bottom bridge popped right out. And I showed him, and he was shocked. He's like, "What are you going to do?" I went to the bathroom, rinsed it out, and was able to pop it back in. It was still a little bit loose, but it, you know, went back on the two pegs that are holding it together. And yeah, went and gave the opening statement. I think a lady was actually falling asleep while I was doing it, and that's no joke. Like, we had to talk to the judge about it at one point. He said he'd watch her, but I don't know how great I did, but I did it and got to be, you know, in the courtroom, which is something most lawyers never get to do. Actually, it's very few. Like, it's not like on TV where everybody's going to be in the courtroom. It's few and far between. It's mostly all behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, I got to give the opening statement, and I did the, what did I do? I did the at-fault driver. I was able to do the examination of him, and liability wasn't really an issue, so that was okay. It was kind of a softball. We didn't lose, but we also didn't really like win either, if that makes sense. It was more of a a damages thing. But yeah, it was unfortunate. You know, people have nightmares about their teeth falling out, and yeah, that actually happened.
Oh,
But,
we didn't want you to have a Bobby Clark look there in that, the courtroom in the basement there, but it all worked out. So,
yeah,
I had to just bring it up because I read that article. I'm like, that's an interesting story that you could tell the rest of your life. My
yeah,
teeth fell out. But
yeah,
anyway,
sure
so
did.
I want to, there's so much to talk about. I mean, where we're now right now. I want to keep it
Oh, wow.
not
Yeah.
too long, but still, let's kind of jump into the junior hockey. Then you went from there, and boom, you're in NA3, which used to be years ago was the Minnesota Junior Hockey League, and then it became the NA3. So can you talk about hopping to there, coaching that was out in Wilmer? And we won't go into some of the stories because there's been some talk about Wilmer and their ups and downs because there's been plenty of stories about the Wilmer franchise. But how was that when you're coaching there and recruiting and in NA3? You start that's kind of a low totem pole starting out coaching career. Yeah, let's just briefly kind of discuss that and what you learned from there, and then of course jumping on to the Cobbers.
Yeah, no, sure is. Well, how I got the job, I was at the state hockey tournament, and it was kind of getting late, maybe Class A games, but I saw a guy wearing a hockey jacket, and turns out it was Johnny Kraus. And Johnny had played for Bethel. He was an assistant for the Alexandria Blizzard, and Chris Canavati owns both the Alexandria Blizzard and Wilmer Warhawks, as well as it was the Brookings Blizzard at the time, then now has since become the St. Cloud Norsemen. And I was talking to Johnny, and he was asking me kind of what I was looking to do. And I said I would like to be a coach and a head coach. And he brought up the Wilmer thing, I believe, or else he at least brought it up to Chris Canavati later and got a phone call then from Chris and talked to him about interviewing for the job. And Corey Leyland had actually coached in that franchise, I believe, for the Brookings Blizzard at one point. So I asked Leyland about it, and he's like, yeah, absolutely do it. If you actually want to pursue this, like I would take the job. So I went and interviewed with Chris Canavati. They hired me on. I was really, really excited and all the confidence in the world. And then that confidence and excitement got beat down pretty quick when the recruiting was as difficult as it was. Like we started that season with only like 10 full-time players. Fortunately, had some high school guys to fill in. I was able to get more guys to come in as different junior teams made cuts and rosters got smaller. And we ended up having an actually like respectable year. Guy named Brandon Holt, who played at Northland and just graduated. He's actually going to law school, but Holty kind of held the whole thing together. He was our top guy. A couple other good players came back and we were respectable, but it was a battle that first year. And it was trial by fire. And there were some moments where I was ready to quit. And yeah, my wife looked at me and was like, no way you're not going to quit. You just quit being a lawyer to pursue hockey. And yeah, it's tough, but like, unless they fire you, like you're not quitting. So kept going and it worked out. And then the next year had a really good year. It was the COVID year. Hired an assistant coach named Connor White, and Connor was absolutely instrumental in bringing in some guys. He was just great at working the phones, being on the internet. He was had good ties out of the North American League. He coached for Chippewa the year before. So COVID happens. We end up bringing in a bunch of guys after COVID because some places weren't going to be opening back up, and there were drops from different leagues. The whole thing was chaos. So there were a lot of good players. You look at the NA3 rosters that year, it was some really, really talented players playing NA3. So I had a great second year, beat Granite City in the first round of the playoffs, which was huge, and then lost to North Iowa in its best of 3 series. We lost 2-1, and they won the whole thing. They won the league that year. So we were, arguably the second best team in the league. And then third year, we had the best regular season Wilmer's ever had. And yeah, I've met a lot of great people. Chris Canavati was fantastic as an owner. Wilmer still has a near and dear place in my heart. I'm in New London right now, which is about 15-20 minutes north of Wilmer. We own our house here on the Crow River. The Warhawks are still doing well. Peyton Reuter is the coach now, a local guy, great coach. They had a solid team. They were in the playoffs last year. So yeah, all those tough things about Wilmer that I had heard, feel like we righted the ship and things got going in the right direction, which I'm really, really proud of. And then, yeah, I got the opportunity at Concordia. And so I had to jump at that. And of course,
yes, you did. Here's that men's hat. Welcome. That suit and tie, and welcome to Kirk Olimb to the squad. So yeah, so that experience being the 6th coach, and I mentioned in the beginning, you back in the day when I played a couple years and I quit hockey. Long story short, Al Rice was the coach, your Cobber coach, well known there. His son played Mark there. And back in the day, they were pretty darn tough back in the 80s, late 70s.
Yeah, I know Mark. Mark Rice is around the rink all the time. Great guy.
Okay, yeah.
And then
So I mean,
Bomber,
that's
Steve Baumgartner, he's
yep.
fantastic. Bomber's the man. Yeah, those guys play in our golf tournament. They're great. Chris Howe, absolutely phenomenal coach, good friend. Yeah, it's a great list that I'm really proud and honored to be a part of.
Well, I mean, your goal, and the thing is going from NA3 or NA or whatever. You're not a little bit different. You're recruiting a lot more there, and your season starts later, and juniors are starting earlier. You're starting in hockey and MIAC. What is it, like October, November? You're going, and it's done earlier. Where junior, you're constantly going. So let's talk about that experiences. As far as recruiting differently. I mean, it's got to be a little. I know being a former MIAC guy going to Augsburg, the cost has gotten to be, with some of these schools. I mean, that's tough. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, that's the toughest thing about recruiting. Some of these kids, they don't come from always from wealthy families playing hockey to get them to play there. And obviously there's scholarships and grants and things you can get, but um, can you talk about that as a coach, how that, how those things are different from playing, doing the coaching as a junior coach now to a college coach?
Yeah, it's a lot different. When you do look at cost, of course, it's nice when you're talking to a kid on the phone and they say that they have really good grades. That's huge. So our scholarships range from 12,000 up to 18,000. Tuition right now is at about 31. You can also get extra scholarships if you apply early, if you come to visits on campus, if you have alumni referrals. And then, of course, you can fill out the FAFSA, and depending on your financial need, can get more too. We have something that's called the Concordia Promise right now. So if your family makes under 90,000, you actually get to go to school tuition free. I believe it is. That was to match what Minnesota rolled out for the state schools. So it can be very affordable, especially for good students or if there's students with financial need. But no, that's a big part of it that you don't need to worry about in junior. The number of games, I do wish we played more games. It'd be nice to play at least up in the 30s or something. I miss the games because playing 25, same as a high school. We have 2 exhibition games we play 2 against Jamestown. So we play 27 plus hopefully playoffs. But yeah, I wish we played more games. So that's been a bit of an adjustment. And you're recruiting from all over the place. And of course, you can't make trades or anything either. And so, hopefully guys really like it when they come and it works out. There is the transfer portal now, or you can do a self-release. But I've been lucky. Our guys have been great. I love the boys that we've had on the team. They're great human beings, great hockey players. They're doing well in life after school. It's been fun to stay in touch with guys and see them have, life milestones of getting engaged or, getting that first big job or getting married, things like that. And, having this golf tournament, guys coming back. So yeah, it's just different, but I love it. It's fun to be on a college campus. I actually taught business law last year, first semester. They needed a lawyer to do it. So I got to meet a lot of students that way. But no, the recruiting game is different. You're looking at the North American League a lot. You're looking up in Canada a lot. The top end players from the NA3. It's fun to see guys that are upward trajectory guys that are staying hungry, getting after it. You mentioned before guys that maybe played D1 who think it's going to be easy. And some of those guys come in from D1 and they're absolute studs, no doubt about it. But then there's others, if they don't care that much, it's, they're going to get passed up. And they're guys that come from the NA3, they maybe never even played a game in the North American League, and they keep getting better and better and better. And this year we had 2 guys, Ben Lidke and Brady O'Brien, and they did play for me in Wilmer, and they were captains here for me, but the team voted, and they were unanimous choices for captains. So our 2 captains this year, both played NA3. Both were captains of their high school teams. So like Lidke at Wayzata, O'Brien at White Bear Lake. It's there's good players that just, don't get a chance here or there. And I was lucky enough to have them in Wilmer, and now they'll be seniors for me up at Concordia and be wearing letters for us. So it's great to see. But yeah, there's all sorts of good players all over the place. So the key for me is to try to find the right people, who are going to come in, they're going to work hard, they're going to have fun being at the rink, they're going to just buy into the culture, be coachable, and work hard in the classroom. Not everybody's going to be a straight A student. I understand that, but go to class, do what you can and yeah, be a good person. That's huge. And because, yeah, there's just so many good hockey players out there. So trying to sort through them. But I think our bread and butter will always be at least somewhat local-ish guys, at least like Minnesota, North Dakota, a lot from northwestern Minnesota or North Dakota, but then expand down into the cities too. And then you get a few guys here or there that probably either have ties to the area or else played junior with some of the guys on the team. Like we have a guy, Jojo Hargindegi from California, but he played in Minot with a bunch of guys who played for us. So we ended up getting him. Zach Stoner is from Virginia, but his grandma is from Fargo and she lives there. So things like that. Yeah. But yeah, the recruiting, it's a lot of guys that you maybe have connections with over the years or from the area or they know somebody, and that's the hockey world for you. But a lot of good hockey players to pick from, and now even more at the college level. CHL guys are even eligible to play D3 now. So
yeah. Well, I think two things about what I learned over the years, having been involved with hockey and with D3 and being Winona now, where St. Mary's D3 is here. There's a couple of things you talked about. When you talked about the cost there, I think the average Joe doesn't realize that it's not. It may seem here's the price. The average indebtedness nowadays going into college at some of these schools is a lot less than people would think. Like, oh my God, the price is this. It's not the case because you just talked about it with these different scholarships and different things going on. That it's just all about awareness. And secondly, when I talk about the MIAC or Division III, but particularly the MIAC, you only have 20 some games. You can be in first place one weekend, and the next place you can be like out of the playoffs. It's so tight because of that. With the home and homes or playing series on the road, it doesn't take much. You're in the playoffs or out of playoffs, and you can attest to that because I remember Bobby and I were on the bus. We're going to a game, and I think you guys came down like the last game of the year. Was it last year or 2 years? I can't remember. My memory escapes me. But
all 3 years.
Went down to the wire.
Yeah,
went down to the wire. Yeah. All 3 years you've been down to the wire. Last game of the year, right around it.
Yeah, so that's how it goes. I mean, last year, the last weekend of the season, there were 7 teams that were still alive. There were only 2 teams that weren't alive for the playoffs still, and both of those teams, Hamline took Gustavus to overtime, almost pulled that off at Gustavus, and Gustavus won the MIAC, and then Augsburg beat St. Mary's in a game that was meaningless to them, but that's what actually got us into the playoffs was Augsburg beating St. Mary's. So we got in as the 5 seed, and like Scholastica was right there, St. Mary's was right there, St. John's, St. Olaf. I think there was a 5-way tie for 3rd place, I want to say, before the.
It's crazy. It was actually crazy.
Yeah, and the year before that, same deal. Year before that, same deal. My first year, we were able to beat St. Mary's on the road to get into the playoffs as the 4 seed. Then St. Olaf beat us as the 5 seed, and they won the MIAC as the 5 seed. Next year, we lost to St. Mary's for us to get eliminated and didn't make the playoffs, unfortunately, just by a point. I had to pull the goalie in a tie game in the last game of the year because we needed a regulation win to give us a chance. They scored an empty netter. And then last year, we had lost earlier in the day to St. John's on a Saturday, and so we were scoreboard watching, and then Augsburg beat St. Mary's, and because of a tie break for us, St. Mary's and Scholastica, we were able to get in. And you look at shootout wins and losses versus OT wins and losses. The shootouts are considered a tie, but you get an extra point. OT is just like a win or loss, but it is 2 points versus 1, 3-on-3. And you only play 16 MIAC games, actually. So it's 16 games. So it's like an NFL schedule. And,
well, you can't. Bottom line is, you can't take any night off.
No,
you take a night off. You have a bad. It happens. You have a bad game, but you can't take a night off. You guys playing in that league, you have to play every game hard when there's that few games. It's really. That's why I say Division III hockey. If you get a chance, wherever you're watching this, whatever part of the country, if there's a club in your, a D3 squad in your area, go check out a game because it's some dang good hockey. There's some good players and a lot of good players out there.
The 1 year St. Olaf, because they had all 9 teams got to make the playoffs. It was the year before I got to Concordia. Concordia was number 2 in the regular season, played St. Olaf, who was number 7. So they usually wouldn't have even made the playoffs. But because of COVID, everyone did. St. Olaf won, and then they went on to win the MIAC playoffs as the 7 seed. So that's crazy, that's how tight it is. It's one and done. Like everybody beats everybody, the MIAC. And I remember Chris Berenger saying that back when we were playing, it's the MIAC boys. Like every night's going to be a dogfight, and it's gotten even more so. It's a battle.
Absolutely. And I know, like I said, I'm trying to keep it a little bit short, but I got so many things. There's a couple more things I want to talk about before we
Sure.
jump on, and finish up here. But I'm going to throw this up and talk about this experience because it's about going back home, and coaching against Olaf there in Hockey Day, Minnesota. How was that as a coach and being from town and being on Hockey Day, Minnesota? And I think you guys won that game too, if I remember right.
Sure did. Yep. It was, yeah. I mean, my wife says it was the coolest sporting event she's ever been to. It was one of the coolest sporting events I've been involved in. And, we've talked about some cool ones, but to play outside in Warroad under the lights, it was a good crowd. They were cheering for us, of course, because, had some buddies up there, and we were the northern team, and we got down 2-0. Actually, we were down 2-0, I think, after one, and 2-1 after two. And it was about 5 minutes to go in the third before we tied it up at 2, and then scored a couple more. Hunter Olson with some big goals for us. I think Tal Halliday, your Rosa guy, had a big assist. Isaac Henkemeyer Howe would have scored a big goal, I think, to tie it up on the power play. But it was a crazy last 5 minute stretch where we scored 3 unanswered to win 4-2. And yeah, it was unbelievable. So much fun. We had those special Hockey Day jerseys. Actually brought the team over to my house quickly before the game, and then after the game, my dad made some sandwiches and sloppy joes, and the boys got to go in our house. My room is painted just like this backdrop here. It's like a hockey rink. So my dad painted painted it like that back in the day. So they got to go see that. I got a bunch of my old jerseys and medals and stuff, and ribbons from like hockey camp, Spark Plug Award and most coachable and skills contest champion one year. So a bunch of things like that. So they got to look at my stuff and meet my dad, and yeah, it was just really, really special all around. They did a phenomenal job in Warroad with Hockey Day, and then we stayed at the Can-Am and then watched the games the next day, the Hockey Day games, before the bus went back to Moorhead. But yeah, to win that game, just to be a part of it, was something I'll never forget. Was really, really special.
Yeah, pretty cool experience. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring that up, so I'm glad I did. But lastly, as far as coaching there in Concordia, I'm going to throw this up, and I want you to talk about this because I think it's important. It's just a game, right? We love the game. There's very, very few. The percentage of people that go on to make it to the big show, to NHL or the pro, is very small. It's a sliver when you talk about how many people played hockey. But the game of life, and this is to me an important part, especially being an MIAC school because of education purposes. This right here, they had the academic all conference winter and spring for the MIAC, and you guys had, I think, 10 on the roster that were academic all conference, and I think there was 4 that were all scholar team for the HC American, all American. So that's really good. I mean, that's coming from a guy that says a lot about you as a coach too, because your grades were great, phenomenal, some cool, like you said, but be able to pass that on and say, guys, we want to play hard, we want to win, we want to do that, but there's a lot, the life after hockey and education is important. So can you attest or just talk about your guys and, the culture you built there? And I mean, that's really something to be proud of too.
Yeah, I am really proud of it. And, the guys get to do anonymous evals. And of course, not everything is positive. But one thing that was pretty unanimous was that I cared, and that I cared a lot about them off the ice and with their studies, just as human beings. And I do. So I push it hard that they should be doing the best they can in the classroom. And we have a cumulative GPA of 3.3 something north of that, which is great. We've just been a hair shy of having the best GPA on campus. So no, I push the guys to do as well as they can in the classroom. And yeah, they've done a great job. They take it serious and they work hard. They come to the rink and work hard. They work hard in the gym and they work hard in the classroom. So I've been really, really fortunate, but I definitely do, put a bug in their ear about doing well in school. And if I do hear from anyone that maybe it's not going well or they're missing class, I talk to them and, get them to try to get back in there. And the biggest thing is going to class and working hard. If you put in the effort, you should at least pass, assumedly. But yeah, if you put in the effort, you're working hard and you have some ability, you're going to be looking at doing pretty well. Unfortunately, we have quite a few guys that have done really, really well. Some 4.0s, some high 3.9. We had a guy graduate this year. I think he had a 3.95 cumulative.
Wow.
Will go on and do really, really well. yeah, a bunch of guys that are great human beings and great hockey players, great students, and I got all the faith in the world in them going out into the workforce and doing well. Hopefully, coaching some hockey down the road, youth hockey, what have you, and maybe some of them will pursue it. But if they don't, like, they're good. So yeah, that's what it's all about. And even guys that make it to the NHL, they got to do something else at some point, you know. So it's important to take care of those things and figure out what you want to do. And college is a great time to do that. You can take different classes and you know, try to figure out what you want to do after hockey, which at some point all careers lead to beer league, is what I've been told. And that's even coming from the best. We got a pretty good beer league or men's league in Moorhead, skating out there with Matt Cullen and Mark Cullen and Van de Velde and guys. So even the best of the best end up, you know, can't play forever.
No. But like I say, it's just something that you build relationships that you last forever, a lifetime playing a sport. You know, I didn't go on to play at a high level or this or that, but I played with some really good guys that did. And, you know, in senior Czech league afterwards too, I mean, a lot of good hockey players, but relationships that all last for a lifetime. You know, I can pick up my phone and call some of these guys and they'll talk to me and just reminisce. So it's really, I love the game, and doing this is getting back into the game. And this is a record, Kirk, for longest I've been in an interview, by the way. I mean, I have to tell you that. So it is very long. But I want to finish it up with this. You know, there's one thing that I always end with, no matter who I'm talking to, coach or former player, is if you had a young student athlete, doesn't matter what sport, but it's, take hockey, but anybody come up to you and say, Mr. Olimb, what piece of advice could you give me as a young student athlete? I want to be a better hockey player. I want to be a better person. What advice would you give to them looking at that?
Well, I mean, that's pretty broad. I guess you just go with the old tried and true. Hey, work as hard as you can, but like find something you're passionate about. And, I guess if it is playing hockey, one thing I would say, like, really look inside yourself as to what your passions are. If it is a hockey player, wanting to be a hockey player, then you got to outwork everybody else. Like, if you outwork everybody else and it still doesn't work out, then at least you look in the mirror and like, hey, I gave it my best. But yeah, just work hard and be a good person. Work hard and be a good person. I don't know how much more you can really say.
No, and that's awesome because that is exactly kind of paraphrasing. But when I listened to that interview with Zenon Konopka, he said that. He goes, "Yeah, I was a good athlete." But the one thing is, I hated to lose, and is work ethic. No matter, you could have the best talent in the world, this or that, but if you don't have that, I want to win, that work ethic. I mean, so what? You're not gonna accomplish anything. Even if you do lose, you feel better about yourself by giving that best possible effort ever. And that's, something I can't stress it up when I coach, when I broadcast. I'm probably a little bit too blunt at times when I broadcast, but I see it sometimes. That passion, you gotta have a passion, and that's where I'll leave it with my last comment too, about knowing your why. Why do you do something? Why you're doing what you're doing. And I hindsight's 2020. I wish I looked back, when I was a kid, or even your age, even you're not a kid, but look back and not becoming a coach again, not doing because I chased the dollar and I didn't chase my passion. And that's the one advice I give to people, is chase your passion. Someday, the money will come, but you'll always be, you'll enjoy your job. I mean, I could do coaching, I could do broadcasting, whatever. And if it's involved with sports and hockey, to me, it's not a job. If you enjoy what you do, that's what it boils down to. So no, I this is a great interview. I mean, we talked about a lot, and there's probably a lot of other things we could continue to talk about, but anything else you'd like to ask, or throw out there for people watch this when I put this up? I mean, it's going to go up online in the Facebook, I spread it, and there's a lot of people that back home and they pass it along to others. Anything else you'd like to throw out there before you call it quits?
I don't know. I guess hi to everybody up in Warroad, Hockeytown, USA. Good luck to the Warriors this year. I think it might be our year to bring home a state title. Thanks for having me on, and I really appreciate it. Roll Cobbs.
There you go. No, it's it won't be long before the season starts. It's hard to believe. What is it? September, October? It's around the corner.
Yeah, we start practice October 13th officially. Then our first regular season games will be Halloween weekend.
So I'll leave it with this, folks. If you get a chance, if you're in the area or on the road, you see that there's a Division III hockey game going on between whoever, go out and watch it. Some of the best hockey you'll see. These kids are working their butts off, and you're not going to, for the price you pay, it's some of the best, you get your money's worth. And, thanks for coming on, Kirk. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure of mine. I wish you guys the best. Have a great year and stay healthy. That's the other thing. Stay healthy. So that's it. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. So long, everybody. Have a good day.